It was supposed to be an ordinary flight full of business travelers tapping on laptops, a crying baby in row 9, and the smell of reheated coffee drifting through the cabin. But no one on Flight 227 expected the man in seat 16A, quiet, gray-haired, wearing an old leather jacket, to change how they viewed heroes forever. As the plane cruised at 35,000 feet, a shadow suddenly passed by the window, an F-35 Lightning II jet, close enough that passengers gasped and phones were raised in disbelief. Then another. And another, but what froze everyone, from the flight attendants to the captain, was when the F-35 pilots tilted their wings in perfect unison, saluting towards seat 168. No one understood what was happening, until the old man slowly looked up, eyes filled with memories of a lifetime, and the captain's voice came trembling through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received word. The F-35s are saluting one of their own. A legend from the skies, call sign Raven 1. Airplane Chapter 1. The man in seat 16A boarded quietly, clutching a faded canvas duffel bag with patches that told stories of wars long past. Most people thought he was just another elderly traveler, maybe visiting family. His ticket said John Harris, seat 16A. No one noticed the faint scar running across his temple, or the way he checked the sky before stepping into the jet bridge. Old habits that never died. A young woman sitting beside him, Emily, was curious. She worked in tech, always on her phone, but something about his calm demeanor made her pause. "Headed home, sir?" she asked politely. He smiled faintly. "Just headed where the wind takes me." They chatted. She found out he used to fly back when cockpits were metal and sweat, not screens and touchpads, he said. She laughed, thinking he was just being poetic, but when the flight attendant offered him coffee, he declined. "No caffeine before 20,000 feet, he muttered automatically. A phrase no civilian would ever think to say. Emily noticed his hands, steady, calloused, but trembling ever so slightly when turbulence hit. Reflexively, he reached for an invisible control stick that wasn't there. It was muscle memory, decades old. When she asked what he used to do, he hesitated. "I flew for the Navy," he said softly. "Long time ago. Call sign Raven 1. Something in the way he said it sent a chill down her spine. She could feel there was a story buried deep in those 4 words, one built on pain, loss, and duty. As the plane climbed higher, the clouds outside seemed to reflect his memories, flashes of war zones, night missions, and the deafening roar of engines over the ocean. And in his mind, he wasn't in seat 16A anymore. He was back in the cockpit, 28 years old, chasing the horizon, the world depending on his next move. Dove Chapter 2. Raven 1. 30 years ago, Commander John Raven 1 Harris had been one of the Navy's most skilled pilots, the kind of man other pilots silently prayed to have on their wing. He flew missions no one else would dare, solo rescues, storm interceptions, black ops operations that never made it into history books, but one mission changed everything. A classified rescue over the South Pacific, a squadron caught in enemy crossfire, low fuel, storm conditions, zero visibility. He was ordered to retreat. He didn't. Raven 1 stayed back, guiding his wingmen out while he drew fire, taking hits to his own jet. He ejected just seconds before it exploded, crashing into the ocean. He was presumed dead for 3 days. When they found him, half-conscious, clinging to wreckage, the first thing he said wasn't about himself. "Did my boys make it home?" They did. Because of him. He never talked about it. He retired quietly. No medals displayed, no parades, no speeches. Just a man who wanted peace after years of noise. Now, decades later, sitting on a civilian flight, he had no idea anyone still remembered the name Raven 1, but someone did. The F-35 formation flying near their airspace had picked up the passenger manifest, a tradition between Air Force and Navy where they salute old legends if they're spotted traveling. One of the F-35 pilots, Lieutenant Commander Blake Cooper, was the grandson of a man whose life Raven 1 had saved in that South Pacific mission. When the pilot saw the name John Harris on the flight manifest, he froze. He radioed the others. "Boys, we're not just escorting a commercial flight. Seat 16A, that's Raven 1. Moments later, 3 F-35s positioned themselves beside the commercial plane. The passengers gasped. The crew panicked, and then, the jets tilted in perfect formation, wingtips flashing in sunlight, the international salute of respect between aviators. Back in seat 16A, John looked out the window. His lips trembled. He recognized the gesture instantly. Emily noticed his eyes fill with tears. "Sir, are they?" He nodded. "They're saluting me. My boys, the next generation." The captain's voice came over the intercom, barely holding emotion. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you look out the left windows, those F-35s are paying tribute to Commander John Harris, known to many as Raven 1, a hero who saved lives that allowed generations of pilots to fly free today. The cabin fell silent, every passenger turned to look at the quiet old man. Applause began as soft, then growing, until the whole plane echoed with clapping, cheers, and tears. John simply raised 2 fingers to his temple, saluting back through the glass. For the first time in years, he smiled not because of pride, but because he finally knew his sacrifices hadn't been forgotten. Sunrise ending scene, full circle hook resolution. As the plane descended, the F-35s peeled away one by one, wing tips dipping in farewell. Emily looked at John and said quietly, "You were their hero, weren't you?" He shook his head gently. "No. I was just the man who made sure heroes got home." When they landed, passengers waited to let him exit first. A line of people, businessmen, families, children, stood and saluted him as he walked past, and in that quiet terminal, surrounded by strangers who suddenly understood what true honor meant, the old man in seat 16A whispered to himself, "Mission complete. Raven 1, signing off." Dizzy the message, true heroes don't seek recognition. They leave behind skies safer than they found them and hearts forever changed by their courage.